Hey guys, in today's video, I bring you a shocking story that will turn your head. Leith Draven, at 14 years old, faced death and came back with a revelation that dismantles everything we know about the end. He saw what's on the other side, and what he discovered will leave you speechless. Death is very different from what we were taught. So, before we start, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos like this. Now get ready, because this story will change the way you see life and death. My name is Leith Draven. I'm an adult today, but what I'm about to share happened when I was just 14 years old. My life was simple until then, full of the little worries and insecurities that any teenager carries. I was an ordinary kid, growing up in the sleepy town of Salem, Massachusetts, a place that has always sparked people's curiosity about its mystical past. Although the residents of Salem lived with stories of witches and supernatural legends, to me, the supernatural was just part of the folklore, interesting, but unreal. I never imagined that one day I would become someone who would experience something so close to the unknown. My childhood was marked by fragile health. Since he was little, he had been dealing with a rare condition and, despite all the care, it became complicated to the point where he needed emergency surgery. I was terrified. I remember the waiting room at the hospital, my mother's apprehensive look, and the doctors passing by with worried faces. Surgery was necessary, and although I was told everything would be fine, the possibility of not waking up from that anesthesia echoed in my mind. I've always had a complicated relationship with the idea of death. It seemed to me something dark, inevitable, a final sentence. He had grown up hearing that, after her, there was only darkness or a divine judgment, something that scared a teenager. I was neither religious nor spiritual. I believed that when I died, everything would simply end, but I was about to discover how wrong I was. During that surgery, something inexplicable happened. As the doctors tried to correct the problem that was plaguing me, I felt a strange sensation, as if my body was being drained of energy, a sudden lightness. It was then that I realized that something had profoundly changed. I was conscious, but the way I perceived the environment was completely different. I floated out of my body and looked down at the operating table. There I lay, inert, as doctors and nurses struggled to bring me back. But most surprising of all was what I felt. There was no panic or despair. Instead, a deep, unshakable peace came over me, as if being separated from that body was somehow natural. This is my story. The story of how, at age 14, I discovered a truth that transformed everything I thought I knew about life and death. I'm going to tell you how, in a simple instant, I realized that death is not the end, but a passage to something greater, something that transcends everything we understand. The memory of that morning in the hospital remains vivid. The cold lights, the murmurs of the doctors, the sterile smell of the operating room. Every detail is etched in my memory like a painting that refuses to fade. Minutes before entering the operating room, my mother held my hand and whispered words of comfort. She was a strong woman, used to dealing with my condition since I was little, but in that moment, I saw something rare in her eyes. Fear. Perhaps, deep down, she also feared that this surgery would not be like the others. As the nurses adjusted the monitors and prepared the instruments, I felt my heart racing. The anesthesia would soon start to take effect, and a strange feeling of abandonment came over me. I remember hearing the continuous beeping of the devices, the hum of the machines that surrounded me, like an orchestra of clinical sounds that filled the room. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down, but the fear persisted. What if I don't wake up? I thought, trying to shake the idea. A few minutes after the anesthesia began to take effect, a feeling of lightness took over my body. At first, I thought it was part of the medication's effect, but I soon noticed something strange. My hands began to tingle, and a wave of discomfort spread through my body. It was like I was disconnecting, like some kind of energy was being drained from me. And then, everything went dark. At first, the darkness was total, an absence of any sound, sight, or sensation. But this darkness wasn't just absence. It seemed to have a consciousness of its own, as if I were floating in an ocean of emptiness that, paradoxically, filled me. It was a place where time didn't exist, where the line between my existence and nothingness was thin and malleable. After a few seconds, or maybe minutes, a thought crossed my mind. Am I dead? The idea did not bring fear, but a curious acceptance. There was no suffering or despair, just a strange, indescribable serenity. In that dark place, I felt disconnected from the world, but at the same time, complete. I didn't know it, but this darkness was the prelude to an experience that would change everything in my life. The emptiness I felt was just the first step on a journey to something much greater, something I could never have imagined while I was alive. In that instant, an understanding was formed, an intuition about life and death that defied everything I had ever learned. Little did I know that I was about to emerge from this darkness and discover that death was not the end, but a passage to an extraordinary reality. When the darkness finally began to give way, I felt something new, an absolute lightness, as if I were weightless. My senses were heightened in a way I had never experienced before. Little by little, an image began to form before me. It was the operating room, but now I was observing it from a point above. I was seeing everything, and the strangest thing was that I could see myself too, lying on that table, inert, as if I were just an empty shell. At first, the sight of myself there, surrounded by doctors and nurses, seemed surreal. I could see Dr. Everhart, the surgeon, his expression tense and focused, moving quickly to stabilize my body. The nurses murmured among themselves, passing instruments and monitoring the devices that indicated my vital signs, or lack thereof. I floated above it all, like an invisible presence, witnessing the scene detachedly. A part of me expected to feel fear, panic, some reaction to seeing my own body on the verge of death, but what I felt was a serene peace, something I had never experienced before. It was as if my physical body was just a piece of clothing I had left behind, a piece that was no longer essential to who I really was. Looking at that body, so vulnerable and still, made me understand how much we cling to the physical, the tangible, as if that were all we are. But there, floating above it all, the truth seemed clear. Death was not an end, but a transformation. As I floated, a deep understanding began to form within me, something I could not explain with human words. It was as if, in that moment, the barrier between life and death had dissolved, allowing me to glimpse a world that existed beyond our five senses. The feeling was almost familiar, as if I already knew, on some level, that life and death are just two sides of the same reality. In that state of peace and detachment, I knew that death was not an enemy, nor was the dark terror we were always taught. Death was a portal, a passage that takes us to a reality much vaster and deeper than we can imagine. Everything I had learned about death, the fear, the unknown, the idea of an absolute end, now felt like a veil that had been lifted, revealing a grander truth. There, above the operating room, I had no doubts. I felt as if I was being led to something beyond, as if the very essence of existence was calling me to take the next step. It was the first time that I felt really free from matter, from fear, from everything that had always limited me while I was alive. And with this peace filling my being, I knew something extraordinary was about to happen. I was about to cross the threshold into a dimension of light and knowledge that, until that moment, was completely unknown to me. As I floated, watching the motionless body on the table and the doctor's incessant efforts to bring me back, I felt a presence approaching. It was something that couldn't be explained in words, but it filled the air around me with an indescribable energy. And then, without warning, a portal of light opened beside me, radiating an intensity that, under any other circumstances, would have blinded me. But at that moment, that light didn't hurt. On the contrary, it brought a feeling of welcome, of belonging. From the portal, 3 figures began to emerge. They did not have defined human shapes, but they had a silhouette of light that varied between silver, bluish, and green tones. The glow emanating from these figures was so pure and serene that, for an instant, I forgot everything around me. Even without faces, I could feel expressions of compassion and wisdom emanating from them. There was no doubt. These beings were ancient and wise, and I felt like a child in the presence of knowledge so vast that my human mind could barely comprehend it. Leith, I heard a voice in my mind. It was a soft, powerful voice that didn't need to be said in words. It resonated directly in my consciousness, like a thought that formed effortlessly. You can choose. To choose. The idea that I had a choice seemed incomprehensible at the time. I felt like I was dead, or at least far enough away from my body that death seemed inevitable. But these beings of light, radiating a kindness that I had never experienced before, looked at me, or better said, felt me, with infinite patience. They were offering me something beyond comprehension, a possibility I never imagined existed. Their communication was unlike any human conversation. Every word or thought conveyed contained an ocean of meanings and feelings. They offered me a choice. I could move forward, step through the portal, and explore a new dimension where learning and love were the essence of everything. Or if I wanted, I could return to my body and continue my life. The decision felt monumental, but at the same time I felt no pressure. They didn't force me to do anything. On the contrary, they seemed to encourage me to follow my heart, my genuine will. It was as if they trusted that, whatever their choice, it would be respected. The peace that emanated from those beings touched me deeply, as if for a few moments, I was free from all human limitations, and the fear of death was an illusion that disappeared in that light. In an act that felt both natural and brave, I decided to accept their offer. I wanted to see what lay beyond, to understand what they were showing me. A curiosity and a sense of purpose came over me, and then, without hesitation, I allowed myself to be guided. As I took this step, I felt as if my being was being lifted, taken to a new frequency, to a place where the laws we know on Earth simply did not exist. The last thing I saw from the operating room was my body, still surrounded by medical staff. Then, the room began to fade, like a dissipating mist, and everything around me became pure light. I was being transported to a place that could not be described with simple human words. It was the beginning of a journey to a kingdom where truth, love, and knowledge were intertwined in an incomprehensible unity. And there, with these beings by my side, I felt like I was about to discover something that would change my view of life and death forever. When I passed through the portal, I felt a wave of enveloping and welcoming energy. It was as if, as I passed through that veil of light, I was leaving behind everything I knew and preparing to enter a much more expansive reality. In the next instant, he was in a place that defied all possible descriptions. The colors around me were vivid and pulsating, but not limited to the spectrum we know. Each tone seemed to carry its own feelings and meanings, as if the environment itself had consciousness and will. The place was vast, an endless expanse, filled with fluid shapes that danced in the air, each one emitting a soft, welcoming light. I soon realized that those shapes were not objects or landscapes. They were souls, each with a unique energy, moving with a lightness that reflected peace and freedom. Some intertwined in a kind of slow and graceful dance, while others remained close to spiritual guides who radiated a serene and engaging wisdom. One sight in particular caught my attention. Near where I was, a group of souls were playing with something that at first looked like a ball of light. They moved in a circle, throwing the sphere at each other, and each time the ball passed from one soul to another, it changed color, emitting a new frequency of light and sound. When I looked closer, I realized that that ball was in fact another soul, which allowed itself to be carried from one side to the other, as part of a game that I still didn't understand. As I watched, I felt the presence of the three beings of light that had guided me there. They were by my side, but they didn't speak. Instead, I felt a wave of understanding coming from them. That game was a metaphor, a way of representing the interconnected nature of souls, showing that existence is a constant exchange of energy and learning. With each movement, those souls seemed to merge and separate, in an expression of unity and individuality at the same time. Walking further, my eyes caught another intriguing scene. A soul was wrapped in a cocoon of bluish light, floating in a kind of deep rest. When I asked the beings of light about her, a telepathic response came to me, explaining that that soul was in a healing process. He was recovering from traumas he had accumulated in past lives, and to do so, he needed time and isolation. It was as if, even after death, there was a continuous cycle of learning and repair. This vision touched me deeply. I understood that what we experience on Earth, our traumas, our pain, does not magically disappear after death. On the contrary, these aspects continue to be part of our being, and healing is a process that occurs at levels that go beyond our physical existence. Each soul was there to evolve, to learn and to overcome the limitations it carried, always guided by loving guides who helped along this path. As I absorbed these revelations, I felt welcomed by the place, as if I had finally found a home for my consciousness. The spiritual realm was vast, but at the same time, intimate and welcoming, as if everything was connected in a harmonious way. I was beginning to understand that the purpose of life, and existence itself, was something much grander and more interconnected than any human belief could explain. There, among those souls and under the silent guidance of my guides, I felt I was being prepared for the next stage of my journey. The peace and understanding that permeated that place was something I knew I would never find in the material world. And yet, a part of me still felt that this experience was not the end, but just the beginning of a greater revelation. Something was coming, and I felt a deep excitement and serenity thinking about what I was yet to discover. As I continued to explore that vast and mysterious realm, my eyes were drawn to a figure further away. Amidst the intense luminosity and the souls that moved gently around, there was an isolated soul, wrapped in a cocoon of bluish, pulsating and delicate light. The energy emanating from her was different from the others. There was a quiet depth, a heaviness that indicated something special. It was as if that soul was in a state of deep rest, but not in an ordinary way. It was a purposeful, almost sacred rest. The three beings of light, who remained at my side like patient and silent guides, sensed my curiosity. Speechless, I felt a stream of telepathic understanding coming from them that explained what I was seeing. That soul, I was told, was going through an emotional healing process, a period of recovery after carrying deep trauma from past lives. She had brought accumulated pain and scars, and to continue her evolutionary process, she needed time and isolation to rebalance herself. Even after death, I asked, surprised by the idea that trauma could persist beyond physical life. The answer came in the form of a sensation, a wave of clarity that explained what, until then, I had not considered. Death did not erase what we are. It simply transported us to a new stage of learning. Our experiences, the feelings we cultivate, the pains we have not overcome, all of this remains with us, shaping our essence. Observing that soul, I began to realize something profound about the nature of existence. I understood that spiritual evolution was not a final destination, but an ongoing process of learning and healing. There was an intrinsic wisdom in that cocoon of bluish light, as if each gentle pulse of the soul was a stage of liberation and understanding. The cocoon was a safe space, a protective barrier that allowed that soul to delve into itself and, little by little, release the painful marks it had brought. As I watched her, a thought formed in my mind. Is this the purpose of life and death? I felt like I was receiving an answer directly from the universe. Life, with all its complexities, is an opportunity to grow and learn, and death, far from being the end, is simply a passage to continue this learning on a new level, where love and understanding are the forces that guide each step. The guides noticed the change in my understanding. One of them delivered a soft message, almost a whisper in my mind. What you saw today is just a small part. All beings on all planes follow this journey. Healing is universal, and love is your path. As I absorbed this truth, I felt a deep compassion for the recovering soul, understanding that it represented much more than an individual being. She was a symbol of the cycle of healing and evolution that we all, at some level, go through. At some point, each of us needs time, a safe space to process our pain and prepare for the next step. The experience of that meeting was transformative. As I looked at that soul, enveloped in light and protection, I knew I was witnessing one of the deepest and most mysterious aspects of life after death. With a heart full of gratitude and wonder, I walked away from that scene with a new understanding. Existence is a journey of growth that spans time and space, and healing is an endless path, guided by the love and wisdom that exists in all parts of the universe. After the encounter with the recovering soul, I felt a shift in the energy around me. The three beings of light that guided me emanated a more intense presence, almost as if they were preparing the environment for something special. Suddenly, a kind of screen formed in front of me, but it was not a physical screen, but a projection of pure energy. I felt something profound was about to happen. That's when I understood. I was about to go through the life review. The feeling of having my life laid out before me was strange and intimidating. In a matter of seconds, scenes from my childhood began to unfold, as if someone were turning the pages of an old album. I found myself, when I was 6 or 7 years old, being bullied at school. I remembered the fear, shame, and loneliness I felt at that time, emotions I had tried to hide even from myself. It was as if, in that moment, I relived each feeling with an intensity that made me realize how much that experience had impacted me. The life review was not limited to a simple walk down memory lane. It was as if I was inside each situation, experiencing the feelings again, but in a different way. The beings of light, as loving guides, seemed to help me see these experiences with a view of compassion and understanding. I relived not only the moments in which I suffered, but also those in which I myself caused suffering. I remembered an occasion as a teenager when I took out my frustration on a weaker colleague. Trying to assert myself, I felt the pain I caused, but without judgment or blame. It was a pure learning experience. Alongside these scenes, there were also moments of tenderness and connection, especially with my family. I saw my mother preparing a special meal to comfort me after a bad day, or my father teaching me how to ride a bike. Every moment was relived in detail, but in a way I had never experienced before. It was as if, for the first time, I was seeing the depth of each small act of love that, until then, I had taken for granted. The review then advanced to the present. I saw my parents in the hospital, anxious, waiting for news about the surgery. I realized how much they loved me and how much they cared about my well-being. The love I felt emanating from them, even from a distance, was so strong that it filled me with gratitude and an immense desire to be able to thank them for everything. But what surprised me most was seeing the future. Glimpses of moments I hadn't yet experienced flashed before me like fragments of a puzzle. I found myself driving a car, something that seemed impossible for the 14-year-old boy that I was. I had a glimpse of a dark period, where I was holding a cell phone in a situation that was still unknown to me, and I also saw a strange and almost surreal scene. I was at a ceremony in a foreign country, with a woman at my side that I felt somehow be my wife. These moments didn't come with explanations, but the simple vision of what was to come gave me a sense of continuity, a certainty that my journey was just beginning. The life review was a powerful experience, which showed me the interconnectedness of all my actions, thoughts, and emotions. I could see the depth of each action, how each choice affected not only me, but also those around me. In the end, I felt a deep understanding and acceptance of my own trajectory, with all the failures, successes, and learnings. When the images began to disappear, I looked at the beings of light that accompanied me. They emanated silent approval, as if they were satisfied with what I had understood. I knew that that review was a gift, an opportunity to understand the true meaning of life, and that from then on, my path would be guided by this new awareness. After the intense review of my own life, a new cycle of visions began to form before me. Only this time, they were not about the present or the future of the life I knew. It was something completely different. I felt transported to a series of fragmented, vivid moments, each one bringing with it a sense of déjà vu, as if they were memories that had always been with me, but that, until then, had been hidden in the depths of my being. These visions showed me scenes from different times and places, each with a unique atmosphere. In one of them, I was on a battlefield, holding a spear and looking at the horizon where an enemy troop was approaching. Fear and adrenaline pulsed in my chest, and then I felt a sharp pain shoot through my body, as if a spear pierced me. The vision faded quickly, but the intensity of pain and loss still vibrated through me. Soon after, another scene revealed itself. This time, I was in a dense forest, running with my heart racing. My body was different, smaller and more agile, as if I were another person, in another life. I could feel the moisture of the leaves on my hands, the smell of the wet earth, and an uncontrollable despair took over me. Suddenly, I tripped and fell, feeling the weight of a large, fierce animal approaching. Before realizing the outcome, the vision dissipated, leaving me with the sensation of a life marked by survival instinct and constant fear. Each of these experiences was like a piece of a larger puzzle, revealing past lives I had lived and deaths that had somehow left their mark on my soul. It was as if each of these lives had been a chapter in an endless book, each death a transition point, from which I was reborn to continue my journey. I understood that each of these existences had taught me something, and that, although I did not remember them in my current life, the lessons were recorded in some deep level of my consciousness. As these visions unfolded, my spirit guides stood nearby, imparting a silent understanding of what I was seeing. They helped me understand that death was not an interruption, but a natural transition within the cycle of reincarnation. Every experience, every life, and every death was an opportunity to learn, a way to evolve and transcend. These visions were not just memories. They showed me that the soul carries accumulated wisdom, an inheritance from all its past lives. In a final vision, I saw myself sitting in an ancient temple, surrounded by monks who chanted in a language I did not know, but which resonated in my soul with something familiar. There, in that life, I was an apprentice, someone in search of spiritual knowledge, trying to understand the mysteries of the universe. I felt that in that lifetime I had achieved a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, a knowledge that I had lost in subsequent lifetimes but was now beginning to rediscover. As the visions began to disappear, I felt a deep respect for the cycle of reincarnation and the wisdom it provides. Each life and each death were part of an intricate web of experiences and learning, and I understood that my spirit was always evolving, always seeking greater understanding. Each of my past lives shaped me in some way, and what I am today is a reflection of all these journeys that my soul has traveled. This realization brought me immense serenity. I understood that my experience was not unique, but rather part of a process that all spiritual beings share. I felt connected to all those who have ever lived and died, as if we were all travelers on the same infinite road. This revelation was one of the most profound gifts of that experience. A reminder that we are all interconnected by something much larger than our individual lives. I knew that when I returned to the physical world, I would take with me this wisdom, an understanding that life is an ongoing journey, without beginning or end. After the visions of past reincarnations and deaths, I felt a soft, comforting presence around me, as if I was being prepared to receive teachings of even greater depth. The three guides beside me seemed to intensify their energy, and suddenly, a new series of images and sensations began to unfold before me. They were teachings about physical life and the human body, as if I were about to watch a spiritual documentary about existence on Earth. First, I was led to observe an image of the human body, but in a way I had never seen it before. I saw cells, tissues and organs working in impressive harmony, like a biological symphony. It was possible to see that each part of the body had an exact purpose, an essential role it played in maintaining balance and health as a whole. The guides delivered a clear message. The physical body is a temple, a sacred vehicle that allows the soul to experience physical reality. They emphasized the importance of caring for this temple, of treating it with respect and gratitude. Then the scene changed, and I began to observe the impact of everyday choices on the body. I saw images of healthy, fresh foods being absorbed by the body, filling it with vitality and energy. But soon after, I saw the opposite: processed foods, toxic substances, and addictions harming the body, unbalancing its natural harmony. Each choice left a mark, affecting not only the physical body but also the energy field that surrounds it. The guides continued to impart knowledge on how our thoughts and emotions also influence the body. It was as if a veil was removed, revealing a secret that had always been in our sight, but that we ignored. I saw that feelings of anger, sadness, and fear created dark, heavy energetic patterns that accumulated around different parts of the body, generating blockages and, eventually, illnesses. In contrast, feelings of love, joy, and compassion produced a clear, flowing energy that strengthened health and promoted healing. The next teaching was even more fascinating. I was led to observe the process of conception and development of the fetus. It was as if I was watching an accelerated version of life, from the moment a new soul connects to the body until birth. I saw the miracle of how a life is formed, each cell dividing and growing with extraordinary precision, guided by a superior intelligence. I understood that birth is not just a biological event, but a spiritual process, in which the soul chooses its body and prepares for a new journey of learning. Finally, a powerful image appeared before me, a holographic tree, full of light and colors, that pulsed as if it were alive. I felt that this tree represented the tree of life, a symbol of the interconnectedness of all existences and the constant exchange of energy between all life forms. The tree seemed to pulse in harmony with the universe around it, its roots extending beyond what I could see, connecting to everything and everyone. The guides showed me that this tree represented the connection between the physical and spiritual worlds, and that each living being is a leaf of this tree, nourished and sustained by the same source of love and energy. These teachings about the body and life brought me a deep understanding that living is not just surviving, but participating in a sacred cycle where every action, every thought, and every choice has an impact. I understood that the human body is a reflection of the soul, and that our physical health is a mirror of our spiritual balance. The purpose of existence is to live in harmony with this understanding, taking care of the body, respecting life, and cultivating feelings that strengthen this connection with the universe. When these visions ended, I looked at my guides and felt immense gratitude. I knew that what they had taught me was something I would carry with me throughout my life. Now, I had a new appreciation for existence and a renewed responsibility to care not only for my body, but also for my soul, as part of this vast and sacred web of life. At the end of the teachings on the body and life, the spiritual guides around me seemed to direct my attention to something even vaster. It was as if the previous knowledge had only been a preparation for the final revelation I was about to experience. In the blink of an eye, the scenery around me transformed, and I found myself immersed in a vision that expanded the limits of my understanding of reality. Before me, a vast tapestry of light appeared, an infinite network of intertwined luminous threads, connecting in intricate and complex patterns. It was the universe, or rather, a holographic representation of it. The realization was overwhelming. Each strand of light represented an atom, a particle, a form of energy that made up everything that exists. I could see how each element was connected to every other, forming an interconnecting structure so precise that it seemed to be guided by a divine intelligence. My guides conveyed that this holographic network was the true nature of the universe, where everything and everyone is interconnected in a web of consciousness and energy that surpasses time and space. I felt small and, at the same time, a fundamental part of that immensity. Each of us is a point of light in this infinite tapestry, connected to others by invisible threads of energy and purpose. The realization was like a jolt of clarity. All things, from the smallest grain of sand to the most distant stars, are part of this holographic network. Each of us is a reflection of the whole, and the whole is reflected in each of us. My guides helped me see that the universe, in a sense, is like a mirror in which each part contains a reflection of the whole. This concept made me understand that the physical reality we perceive is just a projection, a tangible manifestation of something much larger and more complex. The reality we know is, in essence, holographic. Each point contains within itself the entirety of the universe. As the vision unfolded, I began to realize that the universe is not just a simulation or an illusion, but a learning system designed to help us evolve. Life is a series of experiences and challenges, each designed to teach us lessons of love, compassion, and connection. The very holographic structure of the universe reflects this interconnection, where each action reverberates and impacts all other parts. It's as if we are in a room of infinite mirrors, where our choices, thoughts, and feelings create waves that propagate and return to us in different forms. Another important aspect of this teaching was the realization that this holographic network allows everything to be present simultaneously, past, present, and future. In this web, there is no linearity, and time is a relative construction. Everything that has ever happened is happening and will happen exists in this eternal now. Every experience, every life, every learning is stored in this universal network as a record of our collective journey. At the end of this vision, I felt that I had received 3 fundamental teachings that summarized everything I had learned from that experience: love, learning, and connection. These were the forces that supported both the physical and spiritual worlds. Love, as the energy that unites us to everything and everyone. Learning, as the reason for our existence, the drive to evolve. And connection, like the fundamental truth that we are all interconnected, part of something bigger than ourselves. As the vision began to dissolve, I refocused on the guides beside me. They radiated a sense of approval and acceptance, as if they knew I had understood the essence of this experience. The revelation that the universe is a holographic network, where every being, every atom, and every moment are part of a tapestry of love and learning, was the greatest of all the lessons I received. I understood that this truth was something that I would carry with me for the rest of my life, an understanding that would forever change the way I saw the world, people, and myself. By the end of this experience, I knew that the purpose of existing was not just to live, but to learn, love, and connect deeply with everything and everyone around us. After the grand revelation of the holographic nature of the universe and the purpose of existence, I felt a shift in the energy around me. The three guides who were with me throughout the experience seemed to take a step back, creating a space that gave me the impression that the journey was about to come to an end. There was a feeling of parting, but not sadness. It was as if I had completed a lesson and was ready to return to my physical body. Suddenly, I began to feel a pull, a gentle but irresistible force guiding me back. The light around me began to fade, and the vision of the spiritual realm became more and more distant. My being seemed to be enveloped by a feeling of density and limit, in contrast to the lightness I had experienced outside of my body. Little by little, I got closer to material reality, until I finally opened my eyes and found myself back on the operating table, surrounded by the medical team. My vision was blurred, but when I regained consciousness, I heard the doctors' hurried voices and felt the nurses' movement. Dr. Everhart seemed relieved to realize I was back. One of the nurses squeezed my hand, as if trying to anchor me back to the physical world. I was weak and confused, but at the same time, a deep peace filled every cell of my being. I knew something extraordinary had happened, something words couldn't describe. As I recovered over the next few days, the memory of that experience continued to echo in my mind. At first, I believed it was just a strange dream, a hallucination caused by the anesthesia. However, the clarity of the details and the depth of the emotions made me doubt this explanation. As my mind and body returned to the rhythm of everyday life, the memories of that spiritual realm remained vivid, like a precious secret I now carried. As the years passed, the experience continued to shape my view of life and death. When watching documentaries and reading accounts of people who had near-death experiences, I found other stories that, in a way, echoed what I had experienced. The certainty that death is just a passage, and that the universe is an interconnected network consolidated in me as an unshakable truth. Today, I can say that that experience forever changed my perspective. I no longer fear death because I know that it is not the end but a transition to something much greater. I understood that the true purpose of life is to live with love, learn from each experience and connect deeply with the world around us. Each human being, each living being, is a unique expression of this vast tapestry of love and learning. This revelation brought me a new way of living. I realized that by cultivating compassion and understanding, I was not only growing spiritually, but also contributing to the harmony of this universal network. Connection with those around me, respect for life in all its forms, and the search for knowledge have become the pillars of my existence. The experience I had at the age of 14 was a gift, a glimpse of a greater reality, and, since then, I have tried to live in accordance with the teachings I received at that time. And now, by sharing this story, I hope it can inspire others to look at life and death with new eyes, with the understanding that we are all part of something great and interconnected. Death is not the end. She is just the next step in an endless journey of learning, time, love, and evolution. This is the certainty that I carry with me every day, a certainty that gives me peace and purpose. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.